Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas, the show where we get down, we dig down to the core reality and reveal the core truth. Now, earlier today, I did a special segment, a special live stream, a short one, detailing the freedom of Julian Assange, what we know, where he's headed. I will be giving all new information, maybe not all new, mostly new information on this live stream now. So if you want later, you can go back and listen to that 25-minute live stream earlier today. That one, one of the main things that's changed is mood. I had to process how furious I am that this has taken 12 years to free a goddamn hero. But now that I've processed that, all right, now I'm into fiery, let's go mood. So, sometimes you got to get it out of your system. And for some odd reason, the mood that hit me, maybe not odd, the mood that hit me as I found out about the freedom of Julian Assange, something we've all been fighting for 12 years now, the mood was just fury. Why has this taken so long? Why has this been going on this long? But now, like I said, now I'm into, all right, let's do this. Let's fight. Let's get into it. Later on the show, I have Kevin Gosztola in about 20, 30 minutes, who wrote the book on Julian Assange. Really one of the best investigative journalists you'll find about the issue of Julian Assange and his ongoing persecution. And I do mean ongoing, because as of right now, not so in a few hours, someone said it's about 4 hours, he's appearing in court in the Mariana Islands in a U.S. jurisdiction court, because again, we own parts of the world where you can just say, hey, the U.S. owns this. That seems fair. So he's going to go into a U.S. court in the Mariana Islands and appear there, and apparently that should be that. And he signs the plea deal, pleading guilty to some ridiculous charges. They then go, okay, you've served your 62 months already in Belmarsh prison, the highest security prison in all of Britain, that is mainly reserved for murderers. And he will then fly to his home country of Australia. But this persecution does continue, in that Stella Assange has has tweeted out that the Julian Assange and her and their family will owe $500,000 for the flights to get him out of Britain to the Mariana Islands, to Saipan Island, and then to Australia, because he's not allowed, because he is Hannibal Lecter, right? He ate people, he ate living people as they screamed at him. He just chewed their face up. And so because he's Hannibal Lecter, he's not allowed to fly on regular flights, on commercial air flights. He was only allowed to fly private jet, which means they had to spend $500,000 that they now owe to the Australian government to pay for his flights out of the UK and to Australia. And I will be donating all of the proceeds from any super chats in this show to the crowdfunder that Stella Assange has begun in order to pay for that. But if you want to donate directly, then you can just go to crowdfunder. They already have £100,000, so that's good to see. But they need to get to £520,000. You can go to crowdfunder.co.uk and look for Julian Assange and find that, or you can find it on Stella Assange's Twitter account. She has tweeted it out. So again, I will be donating all the proceeds from the super chats, every last dollar to that. But if you want to donate directly, that's totally fine, and you can do that on the crowdfunder. Okay, so let's get into what is being said about this right now by various people around the world. That's not actually the one I wanted to show you. Let's see. Maybe I lost the one I want to show you. Many people are doing a flight tracker to see where his flight is. He is several hours will land in U.S. territory. And by the way, Stella Sanchez also said all eyes on this flight on Julian Assange in order to make sure that that everything goes as it's supposed to go, that the U.S. doesn't try to pull something. And so she has also said, keep an eye on this, everyone, because the more eyes that is on what's going on here is very important. And you can find that on WikiLeaks' Twitter account, on Stella Assange's Twitter account. Okay, finally found it. I want to read some of the quotes of world leaders, the actual world leaders who care about this type of thing and are not pieces of human garbage like the U.S. is, and the U.S. has spent 12 years persecuting this man for revealing the truth. And I'm going to get, later in this hour, I'm also going to get into more of what WikiLeaks has revealed over the years, which almost entirely covered up or ignored. Yeah, you hear about the collateral murder video, which is very important, but there is so much over the years that WikiLeaks revealed, not just about the United States. And I'm going to refresh everyone's memory on some of that as well. But here is, thank you, Dan. Goddamn right. Thank you for the donation. WikiLeaks said, the president of Brazil said, the world is a little better and a little less unfair today. Good way to put that. Julian Assange is free after 1,901 days in prison. His release and return home, albeit belatedly, represent a victory for democracy and the fight for press freedom. And let's see, that was the president of Brazil. The president of Mexico said, I celebrate the release of Julian Assange from prison. At least in this case, the Statue of Liberty did not remain an empty symbol, which is what it is 99.9% of the time. She is alive and happy like millions around the world. President of Colombia said, I congratulate Julian Assange on his freedom. I invite Julian and his wife, Stella, to visit Colombia, and let's do an act for true freedom. So there's some of the actual good leaders around the world, not the actual pieces of human shit that are American leaders that have done this to Julian Assange. I also want to remind everyone of this is the person that has been persecuted for 12 years and character assassination and locked in a cell for 5 years, locked in the Ecuadorian embassy for 7 years. This is a man who has won 25 awards for his publishing and journalism, including Amnesty International, Time Magazine, and Walkley Awards. The New Media Award, 2008, the Economist New Media Award, the Amnesty International New Media Award, 2009, Time Person of the Year, People's Choice, 2010. Also, they don't have it on here, but nominated for a Nobel Prize. He won the Walkley Foundation Award for Most Outstanding Contribution to Journalism, Stuttgart Peace Prize Award, 2020, Catalan Dignity Commission's Dignity Award 2019. And there's there's dozens of others. I'm not going to read them all, but this is who we've been busy attacking for years and years, trying to destroy his life, hoping he would die in confinement has really been the goal. And I want to spend a moment showing CNN and how exactly CNN and all of our mainstream media, because they're basically the same, how exactly they've covered this story. Let's just see a few minutes.
Is part of this story. Where is that happening? And what does it say about what's going on in his mind?
She asked, where is he signing this plea deal?
Well, it speaks a lot to Julian Assange's state of mind, the fact that he has an absolute distrust of the U.S. judicial system, that he won't appear in a court in North America.
Yeah, does it say a lot about his mind, or does it say a lot about the way the U.S. fucking functions? You piece of shit. These are the absolute cowards, and I mean all of CNN, Fox News, NBC, MSNBC, CBS, CBC, BBC, NPR, PBS. I don't give a shit. All of them, Reuters, Guardian. They have all abandoned Julian Assange almost completely. New York Times, Washington Post, of course. And here they are saying this speaks to his state of mind. Does it speak to his state of mind, or does it speak to the reality of what the U.S. is? The U.S. has proven again and again and again and again that they do not believe in freedom of speech. They do not believe in freedom of press. They will arrest and put in prison people for their speech, for daring to speak out against U.S. empire. And this is not a new thing, okay? This has been going on for decades and decades. This is not a new thing. Eugene Debs was in a prison cell running for president. And why did they lock him up in a prison cell? Because he dared say that World War I was like a banker's war and that he did not support it. Because he came out against war, they put him in a prison cell and he ran for president from a prison cell. This is not new. But here is our garbage media. And by the way, just the fact that they're covering Julian Assange at all is, oh my God, can you believe it? Because he's now freed. They're actually covering it. Where have you been for 12 years? Julian Assange should have they should have done at minimum at least a story a day for the past 12 years about the persecution and imprisonment of a journalist, a publisher. But anyway, I'm spending too much time on the first 12 seconds. Let's keep going.
To face this one count that he's expected to enter this plea deal on and agree to in exchange for time served in jail. So he is going to be appearing in a U.S. district court in Saipan, which is in that archipelago of islands in the Pacific Ocean, not too far from Guam. He's on his way there now, believed to be somewhere close to Bangkok in the aircraft that took him from the UK late yesterday afternoon. This court is part of this sort of complex jigsaw puzzle in sort of essentially facilitating Assange release.
Complex, How did it end up being a complex jigsaw puzzle? Was that Julian Assange's doing? Or was that the U.S. empire, which I consider the Britain to be a bent-over little marionette puppet doing the U.S. bidding right in here? And why has this been a complex jigsaw puzzle? This is like when they say what's going on in Gaza is complex. Oh, it's complex. Yeah, is genocide complex? Is it confusing for you? Do we need to draw a crayon picture so you can understand that the U.S. empire, the U.S. parasites, sociopaths at the top of this system have been trying to destroy this man for 12 years because he revealed the truth to us? And speaking of that, I'm gonna show a clip of when I interviewed John Shipton, Julian Assange's father. When I interviewed him in Stockholm, Sweden. I'm going to show a clip of that about his thoughts on the truth that WikiLeaks and Julian Assange revealed. I'll show that a little later in the show. But you can see that even as they're covering this, and this is a lighter report than they would normally do, right? Back 5 and 10 years ago, it was they made Julian Assange out to be a terrorist. But you watch one of the reports from back then, and you did think he needed to have the Hannibal Lecter mask on his face so that he wouldn't harm anyone while walking by.
And we've got details of this in the last half an hour or so from a UK court saying that this deal was essentially worked out or signed off on in the middle of last week, that the British court system has given him leave to sort of forgo his bail conditions.
Yeah, it's been, the British system is kindly giving him leave. The British system that you mean tortured him at the U.S. behest, at America's behest, as courtesans to the empire? You mean that British system, the one that is completely rigged and bullshit and has found every reason to basically just keep him in prison most of that time, sure, the U.S. brought indictments against him, whatever it was, 2 years ago, or I don't remember exactly when. They eventually brought indictments against him. But before that, the U.S. was keeping him in prison in first the Ecuador embassy and then Belmarsh, the highest maximum security in Britain. They were keeping him in there for nothing, for skipping his bail, skipping out on because he ran from being arrested and went into the Ecuadorian embassy. And the prison term for, skipping out on bail, if there's no other charges, is like, a few months or something. And so he should have been in prison for a few months if you wanted to count that as his one violation, skipping out on bail. And yet instead, he was held for years and years. This is a completely fraudulent British court system throughout the entirety of this process. And it just absolutely repulsive. But here you have another complete coward in the CNN reporter, not failing to mention that the British system has been a complete kangaroo court throughout all of it,
if you will, to leave the country to go face this count. And the British courts expect by the end of this week to get everything sort of signed, sealed, and delivered from Assange's side, from the US side, and that will be an end of his case. But it's been a hugely long road, not least for his family and all those campaigning for his release. And we've heard from his wife.
Oh, why has it been a hugely long road? Why is that? Is it just because he's so terrible? Is it because he's such a terrorist? They leave all this stuff out. It's lying by way of omission. To your average viewer that watches CNN and thinks that it's speaking any kind of truth to you, to them, this is the reality they're giving. And by leaving out that this is U.S. persecution of a journalist, of a publisher who never got anything wrong, by leaving that out, they leave people who watch CNN as their main news source, not just assuming, well, I guess this has been a hugely long process because Julian Assange is such a evil terrorist with like a hacksaw in one hand and a bloody skull in the other.
Stella Assange, who's in, we believe, Australia, waiting for his arrival there in the coming days.
When we met, he was under house arrest. It will be the first time that I get to see him as a fully free man. And I was just, when I was speaking to him, I said, well, we can go for a walk, and there will be no restrictions, no curfew.
So it's been an incredibly long road to get to this point. As you said, 2010, Assange is in Sweden.
Why has it been an incredibly long road? We don't know. Let's not mention that. It's just, is it because the completely ridiculous fake facade of a court system? And the U.S. bringing completely fake charges against him, and the U.S. star witness, no one ever mentions this anymore, the star witness against Assange from a few years ago had recanted later in interviews, said he made it all up.
Because the United States is interested in bringing him to justice for the WikiLeaks, then he is under facing an arrest warrant from the Swedish authorities linked to rape allegations, flees to the UK.
Okay, that is false in multiple regards. One is he says he was facing charges. He was never facing Swedish charges. He was facing an investigation, and they called it rape, but really what it was is it was accusations from two women that were pressured by the U.S. and Sweden to claim that he had sex with them, consensual sex with them, and did not use a condom, or said he was using a condom and didn't, or something like that. So, and these two women, their allegations that they were pressured into were so fake and fraudulent and pressured that it all collapsed. And Julian Assange offered multiple times to meet with investigators in Britain. So basically, I'm in the Ecuadorian embassy. Come meet with me, and we'll deal with it. And it never happened because the U.S. just wanted to. It was all about character assassination, and that's the reason that continued at all.
2012, the UK says he can be extradited to Sweden. Assange bolts for the Ecuadorian embassy in London. He's there until he's extradited from there in 2019, held in the UK Belmarsh jail since then for the last 62 months.
The other thing they love to leave out is that in order to arrest him out of the Ecuadorian embassy, which, by the way, was after the CIA had planned to kidnap him or kill him or assassinate him, and the CIA had been stealing and monitoring all of the laptops, all the cameras, all the phones, everything. They had even one of the more ridiculous moments was when it came out that the CIA and other intelligence services had stolen diapers out of dumpsters of babies or a baby that had been brought into the Ecuadorian embassy in order to, the plan was to test the DNA to see if the baby was Julian Assange's. So that's how insane they'd gotten. But he doesn't mention that in order to drag him out of the Ecuadorian embassy and arrest him, they had to essentially violate Ecuadorian sovereign ground. But they did this by making a deal with the traitor president of Ecuador, who immediately within days after of giving up Assange out of the Ecuadorian embassy was given I can't remember, it was IMF or World Bank loan of billions of dollars. So that's a nice bribe. If you're going to get a bribe, that's a good one. Anyway, I just wanted to bring you some of this. This is the way your mainstream media covers this shit. They leave out 90% of the story. They give you a little piece of it to make you think that this is a murderous terrorist who has been released, and they just leave out the reality of what actually has gone on over the years. Okay, I want to bring to you right now, and please everyone click thumbs up, click subscribe. Like I said, if there are any super chat donations coming in, I'll donate all of that to Julian and Stella's efforts to pay for the insane $500,000 jet that he was forced to take out of the UK. But anyway, I now want to bring to you the journalist who perhaps arguably has written and worked on the topic of Julian Assange more than anyone else over these many years. Here's Kevin Gostola.
Hey, Lee.
Hey, Kevin. How you doing?
It's good to talk with you.
It's good to talk with you. You're in Chicago, right?
Yeah, I'm in Chicago today joining you, and just, running on adrenaline.
I imagine a lot of interviews today. Let's just start with, did you think you were going to see this day anytime soon?
To be honest, I thought there was a chance that the Australia government finally standing up for one of their citizens in the past months. We had this parliamentary resolution pass that demanded basically that the U.S. end this case. Now, of course, it was kind of up in the air. What do you mean end it? Do you want us to drop the charges? Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was diplomatic. He's a client state of the U.S. He just said, figure it out. Find some way to make this go away. And he wanted Julian Assange to be freed from Belmarsh and be able to return home. So he was talking about a plea deal, not telling the U.S. government to withdraw the charges entirely. But I thought that we would probably get to this moment, just not this year, not next year, that we were going to see more punishment by process, which is what has defined this case. That for over 5 years, now a little more than 5 years, we had Julian Assange languishing in prison, health deteriorating, being kept from seeing his kids. He survived a pandemic while he was in the prison. He had someone who was a friend he developed a connection with in prison committed suicide because this person was learned that they were going to be deported back to Jair Bolsonaro's Brazil. And he was a gay man, and he thought he was going to be murdered if he was sent back to Brazil. But Julian said he really liked this individual because he had a really great tenor voice and would sing from within his cell. He died with Julian Assange. So and he was kept in 23 hours of confinement on almost any given day. There were a lot of restrictions that were imposed on Julian Assange. And in the recent months, he wasn't attending court proceedings because he had developed a cough back in December. And the cough led to him breaking a rib, since he suffers from osteoporosis.
Wow.
And so we knew that was part of why he wasn't coming to these proceedings, which were major appeal proceedings in his case. So, the answer is no. I didn't immediately believe it, but I always keep in the back of my mind a memory, since I was one of the 5 or 6 journalists that covered Chelsea Manning's court-martial extensively, going to Fort Meade, Maryland. And I was stunned when President Barack Obama showed mercy and commuted her sentence, because she received a 35-year sentence. She only served 6 or 7 years of that sentence. She had a long way to go and could have been in military prison for another decade before she was paroled, and she walked free. So I always keep it back. And just to end, I always keep in the back of my mind this possibility that we might get to this moment that stuns us, which is what I experienced yesterday. This shock, like, oh man, is this real? Is this truly happening?
Well, and bringing up Chelsea Manning, that speaks to how important it is that activists have kept this as a talking point on the top of people's minds, in the Twitter threads, everywhere. If we didn't know Chelsea Manning's name, or if Julian Assange had faded from memory 7 years ago or something, I don't think you'd ever see this. I don't think you would have seen Chelsea Manning freed. It absolutely has so much to do with activists.
And so this moment is a tribute to all the people, especially those you can't name. I'm thinking of the individuals who would stand in line in the morning before a hearing and then give their spot up instead of going into the public gallery, because they wanted people like Rebecca Vincent at Reporters Without Borders to be able to observe and do her work for this press freedom advocacy organization. One of the only ones, by the way, that sent people to go visit Julian Assange in prison at Belmarsh. These people who would have human chains around Parliament come out there and do these shows of support. There's a guy named Eric, I believe, who was in his 90s, who was a well-known supporter in London. There are people who are part of the Assange Defense Committee who I was introduced to, got to know, who did a lot of incredible work here in the States. Then there was John and Gabriel Shipton, his brother and father, that went and traveled. They did their own, Randy Credico. There's a bunch of us, yourself included. We had rallies in the United States to campaign for Julian Assange's freedom. And I also want to say that the mentors, the people who talked to Julian Assange and kept in contact with him while he was in detention, but aren't here with us anymore, and some who didn't actually live to see the horrible moment where he was tossed out of the embassy. I mean, this moment is for them. I'm thinking about Pentagon Papers whistleblower Daniel Ellsberg, who was a great supporter of mine, who would have been ecstatic to see Julian Assange walk free, probably would have been seeing, how can I, at the age of, he would have been like 92, how can I get myself to Sydney, and maybe I'll just die right on the soil of Australia so I can see Julian Assange one more time. Gavin McFadden is not very well known to audiences, but or people who watch these shows, but he's a journalist that supported Julian Assange from within the UK. And also Michael Ratner was a human rights attorney who I got to know, was part of the Center for Constitutional Rights and was one of the faces of the WikiLeaks legal team for the longest time while Julian Assange was in the Ecuador embassy. And these people are just, he was in this has been going on for almost 14, 15 years, truly, when you break it down. And it's incredible to think this man was in some form of arbitrary detention for at least 13 of those years, that he was in house arrest. He was in Wandsworth prison in London for several days. He was fighting a case from Sweden, involved sexual allegations that were
Because even before he was in the Ecuadorian embassy, he was in a house, right?
Yes.
No.
Right. This was called Ellingham Hall. A man named Vaughn Smith helped him and gave him a place where he could spend his time while he was fighting this extradition case. Then he goes into the Ecuador embassy. The CIA targets him while he's in the embassy through, we'll call it a cutout organization, a little outfit called UC Global in Spain. And we think this connects back to Sheldon Adelson, who was at the time possibly bankrolling this company, helping the CIA, probably because he had a shared interest. And then you have people terrorizing Julian Assange's family, lawyers. They're going through the garbage trying to confirm whether diapers, like checking to see, are these children possibly people, like, do they belong to Julian Assange? Is he the father of these babies? It's gross. It's absolutely nuts. And but then he was tossed out and expelled. Mike Pompeo, I love this moment because people like Mike Pompeo and Mike Pence have a sad in the last 24 hours over what has happened. This is not what they wanted to see. They did not want to see Julian Assange walk free and board an airplane and potentially have a life after prison in Australia.
Yeah, and I think I saw a quote from Mike Pence saying, "Oh, this is so horrible," and this is not."
He deleted the tweet. I don't know if you know that, but apparently he was getting so much blowback that he just took it down.
Nice.
I think something happened in the last few years where the base of the Republican Party became supportive of Julian Assange. And I also think the base of the Democratic Party just got tired. They just didn't care. I mean, who were you going to talk to, progressive or liberal Democrat, about Assange that would get totally worked up for it, except for the people who still had a hashtag "I'm still with her" in there.
It really was. It really was led by those ruling elite of Hillary Clinton and Pompeo and some others. This we just want to ruin his life forever. It's just crazy, so vindictive, and of course sociopathic. But that's what they are. What can you tell us about this plea deal? Do you know any of the details of it? And what does it mean for journalism?
The charge was to a conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defense information. When they say national defense information, it's a made-up term from the national security state, basically. It's not just classified information. It could even be sensitive but unclassified information. At any moment, they could just say, "Oh, that's national defense information." In the same way that, like, people who are protesting could be opposed to a pipeline and suddenly hear someone go, "Oh, that was critical infrastructure. You're not allowed to be protesting that, you eco-terrorist," in the way that they come down on those people. So this deal, though, this charge is not precedent setting. It's not binding. It's not something that prosecutors can use. They can't take it and now go, "Okay, great, we've got this plea deal. We can use this to go after other reporters that do what Julian Assange and WikiLeaks did." So that's a little bit of a relief. Now, I think it's possible to hold two views at the same time. I don't think these are in conflict. The victory is that Julian Assange walked free, but we're mindful, and I don't think Assange or people at WikiLeaks or his legal team would disagree. There is a terrible political precedent here, and it was set when these charges were first issued by the Justice Department under Donald Trump. And the fact that Joe Biden continued it, that's the precedent. The political precedent that is awful is 5+ years being detained in Belmarsh, having to fight this extradition. I don't think we're much worse off because Julian Assange accepted this plea deal. It's not caving. People should understand this is transactional, and plea deals are coercive. They are always coercive in the United States. 97% of cases end in convictions. So especially in Espionage Act cases where there's not a single Espionage Act case that the government has lost. Lots of them end in plea deals. And so in this case, It's time served. Julian Assange doesn't have to do any additional prison time. He's not going to be put in a prison in Australia. And in a few hours, he's going to go to a Commonwealth court. I didn't even know this was a colony, but score one for U.S. Empire.
Yeah.
Score one for U.S. Empire, because here's Julian Assange's avenue for avoiding a plane ride to the continental United States, which he refused. So I'm never coming close to Washington, D.C. I don't want to go to Spooksville, Alexandria, Virginia.
Speaking of that, can you talk about just for a moment, what kind of trial he would have gotten in the United States? Because I was just playing the CNN clip of coverage of today, and they talk about him like he's kind of paranoid. They're like, for some reason, he doesn't want to come to U.S. courts, and it's like, he wouldn't have gotten a real trial. No one ever has in those courts.
Right. I saw the Nick Robertson was the international correspondent. He was saying that he had this distrust of the U.S. judicial system. Oh, I don't know. These prosecutors have been gunning for him for the last 10 to 15 years. He had a grand jury open up an investigation back in 2010. And in some form or another, these people were trying to find charges to prosecute him. If he had been put on trial, he would have two options. He could have a bench trial with a judge. And we all know that judges are deferential to national security agencies.
Well, they won't even let him have have evidence or witnesses or.
Sure. I mean, this is a person who would listen to any challenges. If you wanted to say the First Amendment should protect me from being prosecuted, if you wanted to say this was in the public interest, whatever, the judge is going to say no, that's off limits. And that's exactly what Daniel Ellsberg went through, and that's what anybody else who's a whistleblower has gone through. Now, if he wants to have a jury, that jury, he could have picked jurors from a pool of people in this area who their families, their friends, their colleagues all work for the military-industrial complex, or what Dana Priest and William Arkin once called top secret America. These people work for like Booz Allen Hamilton, and they work for these different private security contractors, and those people would be the ones that would be reviewing the case as brought to them by U.S. prosecutors. And what are they going to think? Some of them might have actually been lectured about the sanctity of classified information or state secrets. They're not going to see what the defense says about how you have a right to publish classified information, that it's part of standard news gathering activities. That's just going to go in one ear and out the other. And all they're going to be listening to is anything from prosecutors about people who were put at risk, which there's no evidence, about people who say their lives were affected. A lot of the stuff that they said was harm was things like, oh, a diplomat got relocated because he said something in a cable that he couldn't defend at the embassy in Ecuador anymore. And it's just like, so what? This isn't like, nobody was killed. Nobody ever died. And that being said, the people who have to worry about the worst of this, which was in the cables, how there were names of activists and others who the State Department diplomats wrote their names in these cables. Well, that's on David Lee. That's on Luke Harding at The Guardian. That's on the idiot people who put a password phrase as a chapter title for their tell-all book about how they didn't like working with Julian Assange on these documents.
That's one of the most surreal things for those who hadn't heard that story, that the guy he worked with, Julian Assange worked with at The Guardian, had a password key to these cables and puts it as a chapter of a book, and it's still allowed for access. It's not like it was gone. Like, people just used that key to get access.
Yeah, Julian wrote this, by the way, on like a Post-it note. He hands it to David Lee. And I don't care how old you are, how much of a Luddite you are, you're going to take your password that someone else gave you and tell, like, what? Because the process, it's fun for us to know how this all works. Like, you know, sometimes it's good to know how the sausage gets made, but in this case, this is your trade craft as a journalist. You know, not to tell us, you don't want to tell us that here's the password to your database of all the Guardian Snowden files. They would never do that. So where you're going to make this the chapter title in a book? The idea that this got past a publisher and nobody ever said, don't do this. There's a lot that's happened in this case where you can see people fundamentally misunderstanding how technology works. And that was no more clear than when prosecutors tried to do this. And, it relied on being ignorant about how files get posted online that are encrypted. They have hundreds, if not thousands of documents in those files. And then journalists around the world are able to go to the location of this file, download it, and then they take the passphrase and they open it up, and that unlocks the documents that can become bombshell stories that are going to affect people and reveal crimes, wrongdoing, actions that we all need to know about that are in the public interest. And it's just really, it was always one of the things that was most absurd about this, that Julian Assange was being accused of not being a responsible journalist because of what people at The Guardian allowed to happen.
Right. What do you know anything about? I mean, you might have no information on this, but do you know anything on what's going on with WikiLeaks? I'm guessing it kind of doesn't really operate anymore. It doesn't look like they've put anything up since around 2021. And I'm wondering whether that was an internal decision or just, maybe something they had to agree to get Julian out. I don't know.
So it's worth considering that WikiLeaks has had to focus for the last 5 to 6 years, maybe even longer, on freeing their former editor-in-chief.
Yeah.
I would think it'd be tremendously difficult, knowing what I know about independent media, add in trying to fight the most massive global empire the world has ever seen. And I don't think you're probably going to be able to continue to receive documents, handle them carefully. And I don't think people who are sources that have documents are probably going to believe that they can send you those documents without being detected. I think they're going to doubt whether your secure submission system has the security, or they're going to believe that the CIA, others in the U.S. government have ways of getting it
over.
Yeah. So, but I also will share that it was in this interview, it was from a prison visit that journalist Charles Glass had with Julian Assange, where he got this quote from Assange. Assange shared, WikiLeaks is no longer able to expose war crimes and corruption as in the past. And he added that the U.S. government's war on WikiLeaks has had a considerable impact in convincing whistleblowers to steer clear of submitting documents to the organization. Assange said, quote, that he was afraid other media outlets are not filling the vacuum. There was an acknowledgement while he was in Belmarsh that we are in this moment with the war on Gaza and also the war in Ukraine, what's going on between NATO and Ukraine, and then also the Russian government, that this could be a great time for WikiLeaks, that people all over who have information to offer about these wars could turn to WikiLeaks. But with this case, it was impossible for WikiLeaks to do the work that would be required to publish and take care of these documents. And, one of the things they did that a lot of individuals out there don't appreciate is form media partnerships. They would get these documents, and it's always said, well, Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, they're not journalists. It's not a journalist organization. They don't add anything to the material. That's total bullshit, because what they did was they would go to organizations in countries and involved in work where they had knowledge about these documents, and they would give people access to this material so that they could work on it, and so that they could be a part of helping people expose the criminality and wrongdoing that were in these sets of documents. And so anything going forward, I don't know. I can't sit here today and tell you that I know what Julian Assange and WikiLeaks will do. I know that with this being at a conclusion, there is now a possibility that WikiLeaks could be publishing material again in the future. But I can understand entirely if Julian Assange decides to privately focus on his health, take care of himself, spend time with his family. He's allowed to retire. Somebody else has to step up now and do the work that Julian Assange was inspiring on us all to do. And there are definitely people out there that are in position to do that work. I don't know if I'm the one that's in a position to do the work, but I do know that there are journalists that have resources and funds that can grow a spine and see what Julian Assange was doing and take risks and be in a better position. Because certainly, if you are in the United States and you do this work, you have something that Julian Assange didn't have. You have U.S. citizenship that can protect you in ways that Julian Assange did not have. It doesn't mean the U.S. government won't come down on you, but it means that you get to actually challenge the U.S. government without CIA and FBI spooks totally getting away with running roughshod over the law. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there isn't a struggle over freedom of the press. There absolutely is. And it continues after this victory where we saw Julian Assange walk free. But, I'm a U.S. citizen. Julian Assange is an Australian citizen. Julian Assange was at a disadvantage all along because of how WikiLeaks was conceived as a stateless news organization. And that was frightening to the powers that be, because what it said was they're going to create this website for people to go to, for whistleblowers to leak documents, that is not going to be hampered by any laws. They're going to try to escape any governments being able to tell them what they can and can't publish. And that was novel. That was innovative. It was incredible. But it led to a lot of the trouble that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks had to deal with.
Because it horrified them. The idea of having transparency, and I always make a point of reminding everyone that WikiLeaks and Julian Assange did not just reveal the truth about the United States. They revealed the truth from and within many countries, including Britain, including Australia, including Russia, China, Peru. There's so many. But
Syria, there were emails from the Assad family.
Yeah, and people just want to focus on the United States as if he had some bone to pick with just the United States. We can make this the last question. You put out an excellent book. Let's see, I was going to put up the screen. You put out an excellent book called Guilty of Journalism. And when you were promoting that, did you try and get it talked about or covered in mainstream media? And were they, I imagine, not receptive at all?
Yeah, so it won't stun you, but I haven't been receiving calls from MSNBC programs today to come on and talk. I wasn't invited on CNN to talk about this either. But there are also progressive media shows that never gave me a phone call. And that's disappointing. But there were shows like yours that I have to thank. There are others that I can express my gratitude. Jordan Cheriton at Status Quo was constantly inviting me on. Scott Horton's show, the Anti-War Radio, constantly. And Project Censored was the group of people that supported me the most. The book was put out by Censored Press. Then Breakthrough News.
I hear that Eleanor Goldfield at Project Censored does some good work
Yeah. So Eleanor was great. Eleanor had did an event in Baltimore. I recall seeing you there, and that was right before I became a father. So it was an incredible time.
How's that going?
and that's going well. It's always an adventure. I don't know how you feel, Lee, but I feel like it's easier many days to be a dad than it is an independent journalist, or to be, as you are, like a stand-up comedian / commentator who does their own podcasting work. So in any case, the button that I would put on all of this is to say that if there's anybody who thinks that the U.S. government got away with one, and there's a dangerous precedent, and we can't celebrate, I just push back on that, because there was so much work done by people to bring about this moment. And to me, what the national security state wanted to see, what Mike Pompeo and Mike Pence and James Clapper and others wanted to see, was Julian Assange dead in a Belmarsh prison, or at the very least put him on trial in a U.S. courtroom so they could do hours after hours of coverage on their preferred media networks talking about how Julian Assange was not a journalist, he's a hacker or an anarchist or some kind of combination. And they're not going to get that, because Julian Assange walked free from Belmarsh, boarded a plane, and is going to go to Australia. So I hear people talk about what ifs. What if there are other charges? What if there are charges and Australia has to field an extradition request from the United States? I just think they're done. I just think the targets are moving constantly for the empire, and they got their pound of flesh with Julian Assange over the last 5 years. Just listen to James Clapper. I don't know, have you played the clip for your audience yet, Lee? James Clapper was on CNN, and he said Julian Assange paid his dues, and he's satisfied because Julian Assange was in Belmarsh for 5 years. So if that's the consensus of the national security state, that they're happy today that Julian Assange was in prison for 5 years, then it tells you that they're tired of fighting Julian Assange, they're tired of fighting us, and they're ready to go after somebody else who's more defenseless,
they're
who
ready
they can
to
walk
go
all over.
They're ready to go destroy other lives.
Yeah.
Well, all good points, and thank you, Kevin, for all your tireless work on this topic. And keep fighting and keep covering the real news that needs to be covered.
All right, talk to you later, Lee. Thank you.
Okay, Kevin. All right, that's Kevin Gosztola doing such amazing work, and I now want to bring to you. I'll just be a couple of minutes of Julian Assange's father. This is when I was hosting or moderating his event, releasing his movie called Ithaca, which you can it's still a very moving movie, whether Julian Assange is free or not. It still is a very powerful movie anyway, that he has out, his father has out, called John Shipton, about his fight to free his son. And anyway, this is an event in Stockholm that I was asked to moderate. So I'll just play a couple of minutes, a couple of pretty powerful minutes from John Shipton. And I do apologize. His the audio of his voice is not amazing, but I do believe it's good enough.
Deliberately, calculatedly.
Wait, I started at the end of the clip. Hold on. That's never a good idea to start at the end of the clip. It's better always. I find it's always better to start at the beginning of the clip you want to show.
Narrative where you get to an end and then you go back and have a sleep,
You speak about Julian printing, publishing truth. And to me, that's one of the most important notes of this whole story, which a lot of people, I feel it needs repeating, it bears repeating, because a lot of people still, because of the propaganda around it, don't know this. WikiLeaks and Julian Assange never printed a single thing that wasn't factual and absolutely accurate. And you compare that to every single other media organization, and they can't hold a candle to what WikiLeaks has done, and yet Julian Assange is the one in prison. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I just, in this in this story, there's lots to feel a bit depressed about. Governments hounding a person, locking them up 13 years now. If all of the governments involved, the United Kingdom, Sweden, the United States, had obeyed their own laws, Julian would be here talking to you and saying thanks. Just obeyed their own laws, that's all. So this is a sort of like a burden on us that our institutions of state and governance don't work properly. So it becomes a burden, and we protest against it vigorously. So to balance out that, there are 250,000 cables, 400,000 items in the Iraq war logs, and 90,000 in the Afghan war files. So in the 400,000 of the Iraq war, it describes how 26 of the 28 water purification plants were destroyed, meaning that mums couldn't give their kids a glass of clean water without the fear that the child would get dysentery and shit themselves to death. That's every minute occurrence. Equally, the use of DU in the war in Iraq, that is documented.
Depleted uranium?
What does that mean, DU, depleted uranium? It means that a mother with child is in a permanent anxiety that she will give birth to a monster. They did that to that society.
Okay, I'll leave it there. But if you want that full, I don't know, hour, half hour, whatever long it is, you can go to YouTube and look up Lee Camp, John Shipton. But I just wanted to show you the powerful words of Shipton talking about how important everything Julian revealed was, and also for those of you saying that's young baby Lee Camp, that was like 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago. What have I aged that bad? A year and a half. You're like, oh, look at little baby Lee Camp. What are you talking about, baby? Anyway, I'll use this next little piece I was going to share with you as a closing segment here. I wanted to bring to you as kind of a celebration of Assange, as a celebration of his freedom. By the way, someone has told me that the Roberto's told me the plane should be landing in 20 minutes or so. But I believe I read, at least, unless it's changed, that even though his plane lands in 20 minutes, and Stella Assange has said, everybody keep your eyes on the plane tracker, keep your eyes on everything about this to make sure that the world is watching. But I read that he would not appear in court until 7 p.m. Eastern Wednesday. So I don't know whether, his plane may be landing in 20 minutes, but I guess that means there's a day. Maybe people have to sleep there or something. I don't know. Maybe they actually sleep on this island. Not sure how it works. Anyway, I want to bring to you the 18 or so ways that Julian Assange changed the world. And I'm getting this list from this, I don't know, it's this incredible book I found. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it. I don't know. I don't really know who wrote it, but just phenomenal book. It's funny. It's interesting. It's got insight. It's just amazing. But anyway, it's called Bullet Points and Punchlines, and it has this list of 18 ways that Julian Assange changed the world. I actually did not intend for this to be a sales pitch for my book. I actually just I wanted this list to bring to you, and it happens to be in my book. So here are some of the things, most of which are ignored by the mainstream media, most of which have not been rarely ever covered, or they were covered for like a blip for a week and then they moved on. But this is the information and the reality that WikiLeaks and Julian Assange were bringing us on a weekly, on a monthly basis that now we can't find, we can't get. It's not out there. It's like, and I don't just mean Julian Assange. Like Kevin said, Julian deserves to retire. I think he has given enough for this fight. It's time for others to pick up the baton, the flame, I don't know what you're picking up, but so here are some of them. Of course, there's the collateral murder video. That's one of the only ones that people regularly cite. Thank you, Dan. Goddamn right. That's what the one regular side. But then WikiLeaks also brought us the Guantanamo Bay Camp Delta standard operating procedures, which showed how the inner workings of how Gitmo worked. But it also showed that many of the detainees in Gitmo were already, many of them were innocent, but many of them had already been cleared for release. They were completely innocent, but cleared for release, and they're just kept there and continued to be tortured. So here's another one. WikiLeaks brought us in 2008 the secret Bibles of Scientology, in case you wanted to know about the insanity of Scientology. And by the way, part of how Scientology worked is you had to pay to move up the rungs of the ladder, and you were supposed to be given the deep understanding of life and the world once you got to the top of the ladder. So basically, once you had put hundreds of thousands of dollars in to Scientology, then they'd finally reveal the big secret to you. And WikiLeaks revealed it to everyone. And guess what? It's aliens. Aliens. Oh, they're inside you. Did you know that? They also revealed stuff about Russia, China, the Syria, as Kevin mentioned. One of the big ones about Australia. Where is that? Australia, a secret Australian Supreme Court gag order that stopped the Australian press from reporting on a huge bribery scandal that involved the central bank and international leaders. So he also revealed the corruption of Australia, his home country. The Iraq war logs, hundreds of thousands of documents relating to America's illegal invasion of Iraq. WikiLeaks also revealed the highly secretive Bilderberg Group meeting reports. You know about the Bilderberg? Yes, that's the evil circle of people that run the Borg on Star Trek. The Bilderberg. You know about the Bilderberg Group, which is a group of ruling elites that get together and I don't know what they do. Circle jerks into skulls or something. I don't know. The Afghan war diaries consisted of 92,000 documents related to our destruction of Afghanistan. They reported there about U.S. units would classify civilian kills as insurgent kills was one of the many things that were revealed. They unveiled hundreds of thousands of U.S. State Department cables. We've talked a bit about those. Those included information about how Hillary Clinton was spying on other delegations at the UN. The Stratfor emails also revealed by WikiLeaks. Millions of emails that showed how a private intelligence agency was used by its U.S. corporate and government clients to target activists and protesters. What? You don't say. They also reveal a lot about the highly secretive trade deals. TPP, TISA, TISA, or TTIP, TTIP. And if it weren't for these revelations, thank you, Mariella, for the donation. And all donations, all proceeds are going to, will be donated to Julian Assange and Stella Assange's effort to pay for the $500,000 jet tickets that he was forced to get in order to fly out of Britain. But the trade deals, and they're not just trade deals, of course. These trade deals were ways to get around democracy. They're ways for countries to sign away freedom, sign away sovereignty, and nobody in that country has any vote on that, on how that works or what goes on there. And if it weren't for the revelations, thank you, Jokers for You, for the donation over on Rumble. If it weren't for the revelations on those trade deals, they would not have been killed. We were able to kill them because of information that came out and infuriated people. Also revealed by WikiLeaks, the DNC emails. Of course, many of you remember all the revelations about corruption of Hillary Clinton, corruption of the DNC, corruption of Podesta, all these people. This is not because Julian Assange or WikiLeaks had it out for the Democrats. It's because WikiLeaks reveals what they have. So if someone leaks a bunch of information about the DNC emails to WikiLeaks, then they reveal it to us. If they don't have anything on the Republicans, they can't reveal it. And in fact, there were eventually leaked DMs, Twitter DMs between Julian Assange and Trump's son, where Julian Assange was trying to get Trump's son to give WikiLeaks some tax information so that WikiLeaks could reveal that. Basically saying, we want to reveal stuff on both sides. It's not about Democrats versus Republicans. It's about revealing. It's about a radical transparency, as they call it. And in 2017, and this is the thing that infuriated the CIA more than anything, WikiLeaks revealed the CIA trove called Vault 7, which showed so much about how the CIA worked. One of the biggest things, I mean, a couple of the ones that I remember, that's all in that book, Bullet Points and Punchlines. I don't know where I found that book. I think it was in a hotel room drawer. They just give them away. That was a Bible joke. So, but it revealed that the CIA, first of all, has the ability to turn on smart TVs, not turn them on, has the ability to listen to you through your smart TV without even turning them on. So you don't even have to have your TV on. CIA can listen to you through your TV. That's one of the things revealed in Vault 7. Another thing that was revealed in Vault 7 is that the CIA has and uses a toolbox that allows them to hack into a system and leave what they call footprints or fingerprints that link back to another country. So, like, leave a few Russian alphabet characters in the hacking script or other information, and this can be used to hack into countries, hack into companies, and make that company, when they go back and try and figure out who hacked them, make them think, oh, it was Russians. And that's one of the tools that the CIA uses. And this information, having this information released, it just totally infuriated the CIA to the point that they had plans to kidnap or assassinate Julian Assange, as we've already discussed. So I bring up that list, and the list goes on, but there's some of it. I highly recommend the book, The WikiLeaks Files, which is so much about the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of State Department cables that show how the U.S. government works behind closed doors. But I bring up that list to just show you how much WikiLeaks and Julian Assange brought to this world. Having this knowledge then spawned activist groups to stand up and fight back in a bunch of different ways, such as I think it had a big inspiration to Occupy, but it clearly was the spark that lit the Arab Spring. Now, everything about the Arab Spring did not turn out great, but that's what revolutions are. You can't know how a revolution is going to turn out before it happens. Thank you, Iowa Blackbird, and thank you, Jen, for the donation. Truly appreciate it. And all the donations will go to Julian Assange's effort to pay for the $500,000 jet that he was forced to take out of Britain because they won't let him fly on commercial airlines because they view him the same as Jeffrey Dahmer. So, all right, I think I'm going to wrap up there. we ended up talking, spending the whole hour on Assange and his fight for freedom. Do continue to monitor what's happening next because he's not home free yet. Last I heard at 7 p.m. Eastern time, so that'd be 4 p.m. Pacific tomorrow is when he'll be in the court in Saipan and signing that plea deal. I will be back tomorrow with Government Secrets, my other podcast, Government Secrets. That's live at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific at youtube.com/moment of clarity or youtube.com/@realleecamp. And then I also have this show 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Also, Los Angeles. I'm coming your way, performing live in Los Angeles for the first time in years, and I don't get to perform live much anymore. So come on out, July 11th at the Crow. I hope you will be there to join me. I'll be doing stand-up comedy, but then we will also be taping an episode of Government Secrets live July 11th. It's going to be a great night. Tickets are at leecamp.com. They're also at, I think they're maybe on my Twitter. Probably. Thank you, Guillermo, over at Rumble. Appreciate it. Thank you for the donation. Okay, I will see you either tomorrow if you watch Government Secrets or Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And keep fighting.